Tanse, I'm Cree Nation. Welcome to APTN National News Daytime on this Thursday. 2 people have died in a shooting that happened on Wednesday evening in the Cree Nation of Mistissini in northern Quebec, nearly 800 kilometers north of Montreal. Quebec police confirmed the homicide of 2 men in their 30s, and a lockdown was immediately put into place but has since been lifted. Quebec police say it's safe for community members to resume normal activities, adding there was no active shooter and that the murders may be linked to organized crime. This is not the first violent incident to happen in Mistissini. Last September, a young man was also shot several times at a gas station. This led to the arrest of 2 young suspects. One was charged for attempted murder and the other as an accomplice. In a statement by Chief Michael P.T. Wabano, he thanks the community for their patience and states that our hearts remain with the families and we continue to stand together as a community in support of those affected by this tragedy. National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak also said that the Assembly of First Nations stands with the people of Mistissini at this time. The relationship between Mi'kmaq nations and the Nova Scotia government on the East Coast remains rocky this week after Mi'kmaq cannabis business signs are being removed by Public Works employees and the RCMP. According to a statement by Pictou Landing First Nation Chief Tamara Young, Mi'kmaq cannabis business signs that are located within 33 feet of the center yellow line of a provincial highway or road can be removed, with the province stating that it is considered Crown land and therefore under provincial jurisdiction. Chief Young said they will not accept the decision, adding that the Nova Scotia government has not met its obligations to engage in meaningful consultation with Mi'kmaq nations before taking enforcement actions that impact Mi'kmaq community businesses and economic development. Both Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston and Justice Minister Scott Armstrong ordered a province-wide crackdown on what it calls illegal cannabis dispensaries, including Mi'kmaq cannabis shops, saying they pose a serious risk to public health and safety. Last December, Premier Houston also stated that fentanyl was found in Mi'kmaq cannabis by the RCMP, an allegation Nova Scotia RCMP and chiefs have since disputed. In March of 2025, the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation reported more than $127 million in total revenue from cannabis sales. In a statement, Chief Tamara Young added, "Provincial authority is not automatic or absolute, particularly where Indigenous rights, title, and governance are involved. We are treating this matter seriously and are asserting our nation's right to be consulted and involved in decisions affecting our lands and businesses." There are more than 100 cannabis dispensaries in Nova Scotia that the province deems as unregulated, many of those located in Mi'kmaq nations with that revenue not reported publicly. A teenager from Leaf Rapids, Manitoba has been arrested and charged after an RCMP officer was stabbed Tuesday morning. According to Leaf Rapids RCMP, on Tuesday at around 10:15 a.m., a lone officer answered a call to the local health center where a male youth seeking medical assistance had become uncooperative. On arrival, the officer took the youth into a room to gather information. The youth then allegedly pulled a knife and attacked the officer. The Mountie suffered stab wounds to the hand and upper body. Backup was called. After what is being called a lengthy struggle, the youth was tasered and arrested. A 15-year-old from Leaf Rapids now faces a number of assault and weapons-related charges. The officer was not seriously injured. Canada's 3 Arctic premiers took part in a panel discussion in Ottawa on Wednesday. They spoke on the federal government's plans for Arctic security and what they hope to see. APTN's Justin Hardy brings us that story.
Our message is that Arctic security and sovereignty cannot be one-dimensional.
Premiers John Mayne, R.J. Simpson, and Curry Dixon are in the nation's capital this week for a series of meetings between the provinces, territories, and the federal government. While there, they took part in a Nordic-Canadian Arctic symposium with representatives from Denmark as well as Inuit and Sami leadership. Arctic security talks are more prevalent now due to U.S. President Donald Trump's stated plans to annex Greenland by force if necessary. R.J. Simpson is Premier of the Northwest Territories. He told reporters the Prime Minister's speech in Davos bodes well for Arctic security.
what the Prime Minister laid out, that plan will necessarily benefit the North. He talked about the need to ensure that we aren't reliant on other powers, that we can defend ourselves to the extent that we can, and that means strengthening security in the Arctic, and that's hard security, and that's going to mean investments on the ground in infrastructure, in community infrastructure, as well as military infrastructure and boots on the ground. So I'm based on that, as well as the conversations I've been having with the federal government, I fully expect that we're going to see significant investments in the North.
Nunavut Premier John Mayne said that Arctic security needs to be holistic.
We can't have state-of-the-art military technology flying in the face of communities that are impoverished and in need of basic infrastructure for drinking water, for housing, energy security. These are the types of things that need to be considered in terms of Arctic security and sovereignty, and we are encouraged so far with the conversations that we've had.
Yukon Premier Curry Dixon says that he wants to see the Prime Minister's words translated into action.
We want to see that new approach to the world reflected. And in addition to the new sort of geopolitical positioning, the Prime Minister made a number of comments about some work that he had intended to do here at home, including the development of our economy and the development of the Canadian North, investment in the military, and so on. Those are great commitments and ones that we support very much. We need to see them translated into action now. And so we look forward to working with the federal government to understand how that action is going to work.
The three territorial leaders will remain in Ottawa throughout the week, meeting with provincial premiers as well as federal leadership. Justin Hardy, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
The province of Ontario announced on Wednesday that a new transmission line will be built. It's to support development in the mineral-rich area known as the Ring of Fire in northern Ontario. According to the province, Hydro One will develop and construct a 230-kilometer transmission line that will run from Nipissing Bay to a station near the Errolin First Nation. Construction is expected to be completed within the next 6 years. Stephen Lecce, Ontario's Minister of Energy and Mines, was joined by Greg Rickford, Ontario's Minister of Indigenous Affairs, along with several First Nation leaders for the announcement. According to Lecce, the project will address the rising demand for electricity in the north and create 7,000 new jobs. Binjiti wa Biksaging Anishinaabeg First Nation will have a partnership in the project. Chief Gladys Thompson says it will mean a sustainable future.
I'm happy to be here today. It's a very exciting time for me, for our partnership with Hydro One. It's one of the largest. It's the largest electricity provider in Ontario. Together, we can build a stronger, more sustainable future for all our communities. The future is looking brighter for our people, for the creation of more jobs, clean energy, and reliable power for years to come. The partnership is based on trust, transparency, and mutual respect.
The Métis Nation Saskatchewan says they are expanding their reach outside the province by opening an office in Ottawa. In a statement emailed to APTN, MNS confirmed the move is set for late February. They say the building will support their path towards self-government and fulfill part of Louis Riel's vision of a Métis voice in Ottawa. MNS says the lease is just over $7,000 a month, which they say is less than the cost of using consultants to maintain an Ottawa presence. The space will be used for federal meetings, policy work, and economic development activities. You can read more about this story by going to our website at aptnnews.ca. It was an elevating honor from Perimeter Aviation in Manitoba this week, as the late Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, Cathy Merrick, was honored in a unique way.
The idea of this coming from you guys, that's really great, because she was really about the people, and to see like just the regular people thinking of her and bringing this forward is really, it's even more special.
Todd Merrick was married to Cathy for more than 30 years. His family and First Nations leaders recently attended a naming ceremony of a new plane just added to Perimeter's fleet. The plane will bear Cathy's spirit name, Red Pipe Woman, in Cree syllabics, along with her signature. Merrick was the first woman to hold the Grand Chief seat. She died suddenly in September of 2024 while still in office. Our TR Wheatley will have more on the special naming ceremony tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how to continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch your stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Police in the Juno Nation in Alberta are creating new friendships with the community. That story after the break. Welcome back. The 13 provincial and territorial leaders are in Ottawa this week, getting ready for today's First Minister's Conference with the Prime Minister. Indigenous leaders are not part of that meeting. However, Prime Minister Mark Carney did announce at the December AFN gathering in Ottawa that a joint First Minister's meeting with First Nation leaders was in the works. For more on that proposed meeting, we recently spoke to AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak. Here's that interview. National Chief, thank you for speaking with us. As mentioned, First Nations will not be at the table for the First Minister's meeting in Ottawa on Thursday, but Prime Minister Mark Carney did promise a future meeting with himself, the premiers, and First Nations leaders. Can you tell us when that might happen?
Absolutely. Look, we're first of all, I just want to say we look forward to the First Minister's meeting on First Nations issues later this year. It's long overdue. A lot of work is needed to address the long-standing socioeconomic gaps that exist in this country. It's also very timely, of course, because we're facing threats from the South. We're facing unity challenges here at home on separatist movements like in Alberta and in Quebec. So a national meeting on First Nations issues is something that chiefs have fought very hard for, First Nations have fought very hard for, and we want to make sure that it's done right. So since the Prime Minister had made the commitment in December, I also want to uplift all the premiers of the country who are united as well in our push when we had asked to push for a First Minister's meeting, that they're in unison with us. So I want to thank the premiers for that. We've also been talking with elders, of course, with the AFN National Executive and chiefs across the country and First Nations experts. Next month in Montreal, chiefs and business leaders are invited to a national forum to discuss economic priorities related to the First Nations economy. And based on what we've heard so far, some common themes are emerging. First of all, that this First Minister's meeting can't be a one and done. We need ongoing federal and provincial processes to make sure that there is follow through and accountability. 20 years between meetings is not acceptable. Second, that we can't rush this planning. It was a mistake to ram Bill C-5 through last year, as you recall, and it would be a mistake again to have this First Minister's meeting without giving time to co-develop the agenda properly with First Nations and First Nations chiefs and councils.
National Chief, at the December AFN Assembly, the Prime Minister said it would be First Nations people who would set the priorities for that meeting. What do you see those priorities being? You talked about it a bit there. I'm thinking about inadequate housing and a lack of consultation from the feds, that being flagged time and time again, but also, like you said, the need for more police resources in First Nations.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, policing, water is another issue. I know that there's disparities in the conversations. I'm going to say First Nations are wanting water for all Canadians. If there's one thing that our people are good at, it's making sure that we stick up for the rights of everybody and the future generations. We can't just think of the here and now when it comes to water. And I know that there's some provincial jurisdictions that, when we look, for instance, on a First Nations water bill, I know that those conversations are uncomfortable to have, but they're so important. When it comes to policing, there's all these different regions and silos, and we've seen, we want to talk about, for instance, ICE, for instance. I don't know, I'm just going to say it, and I haven't said it before, but we're concerned when we see 2 people killed down in the States. Well, down here in Canada, over, when was that? Not last year, the year before, in over 4 months, there was 15 First Nations people killed over 4 months. And, just this year alone, I think there's, my staff are getting the numbers from yesterday, but looking at some of those numbers are really shocking. And we have to go back towards policing as an essential service. We're underserved on First Nations communities, meaning we don't have police forces or limited, but yet off reserve we're over policed and we end up incarcerated. So I know that those are uncomfortable conversations, but we do need to talk about policing across this country. And I know that even the RCMP has different divisions and Quebec has, different entities, and we need to have that conversation on policing and, of course, other issues like the infrastructure gap, between Canadians and First Nations. And, you see, the disparity when it comes to education. So lots of different issues. There's like I said, there's no shortage. What do we want to change for ourselves? And I'd like to hear from First Nations about that, and, keep an eye on our website. And I want to hear from First Nations people, on let's change the trajectory for our kids and leave them a better life.
APTN National Chief, will have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Chimigwich, thank you.
Police in the Tsuut'ina Nation in Alberta are trying to bolster their image in the community, especially by reaching out to younger members. As CTV's Kevin Green reports, they are doing it using two First Nation staples, friendship and fry bread.
It's called Bannock with a Badge. Officers sit down with youth in community spaces, the body cams aren't on, and there's no crisis happening. Still, some teens admit it's a bit unnerving.
Low-key, when I first walked in, I was nervous because I had bad experience with cops ever since I was
JJ One Spot says his trepidation eased once the conversation started.
I feel like they're more involved in the community, I guess, doing this, being out. And it's very inclusive and stuff.
For others, seeing officers as more than just the badge and uniform makes a big difference.
It felt good seeing them around. They're in the community a lot, making sure we're all okay, so I like seeing that.
There are 35 officers with the Tsuut'ina Nation Police serving a community of roughly 2,500 people, meaning Nation members rub shoulders with police all the time.
You see them, throughout the schools and at all of our community events. They're always present, and so you get to know them by face. You recognize them.
Corporal Kenny Big Plume says in a smaller service like this, maintaining those relationships is essential.
I'm hoping that they take away just being able to see police officers as human beings. We could be, we're parents, we're mothers, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunties.
The next Bannock with a Badge session will be held at the Redwood Meadows Community Centre in February. Kevin Green, CTV News, on the Tsuut'ina First Nation.
We now want to tell you about this week's new web poll question. Over on our website, we asked, do you think press freedom is at risk in Canada? You can answer yes, no, or unsure. Go to our website at aptnnews.ca/poll to have your say. A Métis Muay Thai fighter from Winnipeg hopes to compete in Thailand this year for the amazing Muay Thai World Festival. APTN Sav Jonza brings us this preview of the A-class fighter's determination.
Ashley Viner is kicking, punching, and jabbing her way to the top of the Muay Thai world. Winning medals left and right, she has only one goal for the World Boxing Council's upcoming international competition.
I will be hoping to come home with gold. I have a bronze and a silver medal from the WBC through Muay Thai, so a gold would be amazing to complete the set.
Now she just has to get on Team Canada to compete. Find out what it takes to win, coming up on APTN National News.
Hi for staying with us. St. John's -4, Charlottetown -13. Cartwright -1, La Grande River -20, -19 in Saguenay, Gaspé -12, Peterborough -14, sunny in Toronto at -12, clear skies in Sudbury at -23, Sioux Lookout -21, Le Pas -19, Norway House -24. minus 18 in Gimli, Dauphin, minus 22. Minus 14 in Saskatoon, Yorkton, minus 29. Minus 17 in Uranium City, Stony Rapids, minus 24. Peace River, 0 in Flurries there, Grand Prairie, cloudy and 2. Partly cloudy in Calgary at 4, Red Deer 2. 7 in Kamloops, clouds in Vancouver at 9. Minus 11 in Fort Nelson, flurries in Dease Lake at minus 2. Minus 22 in Old Crow, Mayo minus 13. Minus 18 in Fort Simpson, Trout Lake, minus 16. Minus 20 in Fort McPherson, Colville Lake, minus 23. Cambridge Bay, minus 29, Baker Lake, minus 16. And Clyde River, minus 23, Aglulik, minus 25. The nominees for the 55th Annual Juno Awards have been announced. Among them, multiple First Nation and Inuit artists have been nominated in 5 different categories this year.
Only stories in this town.
The Juno Awards will take place in Hamilton, Ontario on Sunday, March 29th, and it is Canada's largest music awards show. The traditional Indigenous Artists or Group of the Year nominees for 2026 are Bad Eagle, Bear Creek, Manitou Makwa Singers, Pequot Thuk, and YB Nakota. In the Contemporary Indigenous Artists or Group category, Asanabi, Sebastian Gaskin, Shawnee Kish, CB, and Tia Wood are all nominated. Manitoba musician William Prince is one of 5 nominees in the Contemporary Roots category for his song Further from the Country. Other categories featuring Indigenous nominees include Crystal Shawanda for Blues Album of the Year, Snotty Nose Rez Kids with Sunreal for Rap Single of the Year, Cheryl Siwapa Gaham with the Canadian Chamber Choir for Classical Album of the Year, and Morgan Toney, Traditional Roots Album of the Year. It's Thursday, and that means our Nation to Nation host, Karen Pugliese, joins us now from Ottawa to tell us what will be happening on an all-new episode. Karen?
Tonight on Nation to Nation, will this be the year that we end discrimination in the child welfare system? After nearly a decade under Human Rights Tribunal orders, 2 very different plans are now on the table. One changes the system, and the other replaces it. We're going to break down some of the key differences in the plan and find out who decides what comes next. That's tonight on Nation to Nation after the news.
Thank you, Karen. And that's your daytime newscast for this Thursday. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast, including an all-new Truth in Politics segment. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Ekse.